I wasn't planning on doing a video on Crazy Rich Asians and the Asian movement in Hollywood and all that stuff. Because I'd already done a lot on that already. I'd been posting like crap on Instagram stories, Instagram itself. I wrote a whole extensive blog post on the whole story and movement and my own opinions after watching the film on my blog in the article. But then I saw Timothy DeLaghetto's latest video. So he just recently posted this. It talks about Crazy Rich Asians, but it's more about like his stories about racism in Hollywood. Now they were tongue in cheek, and they weren't like super bad. Like no one was like beating him or like hurting him, but they did show you that there's still definitely a clear distinction in Hollywood and representation of Asians as that, typical, emasculated, invaluable type. So given that he posted this, it just kind of inspired me in a way. It kind of tipped me over the edge in a way, in a positive way, because I've kind of been reading Bruce Lee's new biography. It came out this year, 2018, and I mean, I finished it, and that plus, this movie, plus all these other things, and, getting curious about the movie and watching all the interviews of the cast, it's really got me thinking more about this topic, and I think it's something that requires me to address it at some level on my YouTube channel, given that, more and more my content is focused on Asian American millennial men. Now, this is clearly a concept that you're probably pretty familiar with at some level. Asians in Asia are seen as really cool because they're not a minority there, but here they are, and it hasn't been always that nice. So first and foremost, I got to address Timothy DeLaghetto. He's probably one of the OG YouTubers out there. He's probably one of the first ones I watched. I still remember him freestyle rapping to a bottle of bubble soap that had Spider-Man on it, and that was back when he had 100,000 subscribers, and he was one of the most subscribed YouTubers. He's been one of the only people who have really come out and worked on addressing the issue explicitly and trying to fix it and improve it, which I have a lot of respect for him for doing this. And there's been others, like there's been Kev Jumba, and there's more popular, more masculine seeming YouTubers like Ryan Higa, but I don't think he's really ever explicitly came out to address it or really done anything explicit to talk about it. He hasn't sat down and made an actual video about it. He loves to do just comedic skits, and his funny level was just on all-time high. He is still rather masculine though, but the comedic portion just overshadows a lot of it. And that's fine and all. Maybe he doesn't want to talk about it, or that's not what he cares about right now. But I think it's really important to kind of address it to some level and try and improve it. So I watched Tim's video, and essentially, as you can guess, there's a lot of themes out there about how just Hollywood script writers would just kind of assume that, oh, as an Asian, you're going to play this role of tiny penis, incompetent, very good at school, but really bad at everything else, very scrawny, no muscles, and so forth. And they just kind of bake it into the storyline and assume, without even second guessing or realizing that it's discriminatory. And it's that's why I'm so excited about this movie, about how successful it is and how it's breaking box office records, and it's depicting Asians without these weird accents, with muscles, with masculine roles, speaking English well. And I want to address a few things that may be helpful to you guys, some tips, some history that I wasn't aware of, and I think most people aren't. So first and foremost, there's a lot of different opinions on this. Tim ended the video with his view about this, about how he didn't want to represent this, and if when he had opportunities that were those roles in Hollywood, he declined them because that would have been him, making all that he worked up towards in terms of Asian representation take a step backwards. Now, I've also studied a lot of other successful Asians in Hollywood. Most recently, I've studied Jimmy O. Yang. He's from Silicon Valley. He was also in Crazy Rich Asians. And I've studied Ken Jeong. And they have different behaviors and, in essence, almost have opposite behaviors. Jimmy, he came to Hollywood, California, when he was 18. And if you read his book, How to Be American, you find out that he embraced those roles. He went out to hundreds of auditions, and 99% of them were for pretty typical Asian racist kind of roles, whether they were extras or supporting character roles. And he even listed them all out in his book. But for him, he didn't see it as something that was demeaning or so forth. He was there because that was actually him. He felt proud of the fobby Asian accent because that's how he was when he first came here. Now he's extinguished that accent. And he says he loves taking on those roles and all that stuff because it pays his bills. He's following his passion, and he's just living his life as that dorky skinny Asian, and he likes, he's just being proud of who he is, and all he wants is to follow his passion and do what he wants. So some people get mad at that, and there's all these different perspectives, and it on one hand it kind of sucks that there's Asians fighting against other Asians. There are Asians who are boycotting the movie, a very small, loud minority, because Henry Golding, the main actor, wasn't 100% Asian. Well, guess what? Bruce Lee was 1/8 Jew German. And if you studied Bruce Lee's life, this guy really took Hollywood by the balls and did whatever he could and faced a lot of racism to make his own movies. And I think somehow we've kind of just after he died, he was so far ahead of us in that sense, not just a martial arts sense, that we just kind of we, as an Asian movement, took 3 or 4 steps back. So, with Ken Jeong, he had he was a doctor, right? He really wanted to pursue a comedian job, so he did, and it succeeded, and that turned into a Hollywood job. And he was there just to have fun as well and just pursue his passion. And if it was hilarious, but it was kind of demeaning or making himself less emasculated, it didn't matter as long as it was funny and he had a good time and he could pursue and further his career. And so he took on that role of that Asian in the Hangover series with that horrible accent and naked outside of stuff into a trunk. And that movie took off, and it kind of spiraled into his own TV show, Dr. Ken, which at least kind of portrays him in a more masculine role. So, I mean, in the sense, he's kind of, at first, kind of took the, our image, kind of doubled down on how we're depicted, but then kind of with his next TV show, kind of brought it back. I think there's, millions of Asians out there with all different perspectives, and there's no one, there's no one perspective that's completely right. And I think we all kind of have the same main goals of furthering our perspective. But there's others, at the same time, there's others who, just because they're Asian doesn't mean that they're, the same as us, that we want to hang out with them or we agree with them or that they're good people. There's horrible Asians with no morals who will backstab you, who will cheat you, who will lie to you and do horrible things. And just because they're Asian doesn't mean that we all get along. Same thing with any other culture or race. Just because it's a race thing doesn't mean that, we're all bound as one, and that's fine. There's people I wouldn't stand around just because they're Asian, and I found that out. So you just kind of have to stick your pole where it is. I've also seen influencers who are Asian American, and they're it's too big of a thing to tackle. If you can be the next Bruce Lee and influence billions of lives and perspectives, go for it. But I'm just one person. I'm just trying to make the best of what my situation is, and that's all I can do. I'm just going to try and be above average and make myself look more masculine, so girls like me more, even if the stereotypes against me. My goal was never to be average. So you got stake your poll. I think for me, it's all of these things. I want to improve the movement, but I want to improve my own situation and be far above average, whether or not the movement changes or not. I highly recommend Bruce Lee's book because the book's called Bruce Lee. It's by Matthew Polly. It's a 2018 biography of the man. And you find out he's far from perfect. He made a lot of mistakes. He was very arrogant, egotistical, cocky. He held grudges for a long time, but he also did a lot of things right. He pursued his passion. He was a salesman. He was a marketer. He did a lot of things for free or did things to train people in certain ways with martial arts and cha-cha, which helped him get his foot in the door in the Hollywood industry many times over. He fought and fought and fought to get a movie script making him look like the star approved when he was on his own TV show with the Green Hornet and had his episode fighting Batman. Like he fought, he would stand up for himself when he didn't look bad. He would fight back. He would refuse to be on set. And he was really hard to work with, rebellious, but he stood his ground, and sometimes it worked. He refused to lose to Robin in the Green Hornet versus Batman scene. And he refused to, go on set. So eventually they changed it. He was willing to take that loss, even if it meant he was gonna be he wouldn't have food, or he wouldn't be able to support his family. On the flip side, he was cocky and arrogant, and sometimes it was not for the best. It caused him a lot of issues and relationship problems and physical danger, as well as broke a lot of strong relationships. I think at the end, though, Bruce Lee has a lot he can still teach us in terms of how we can kind of handle this, because he got so far. We're still trying to work towards building that masculine role, that lead role in Hollywood, and he just barely managed to do it at the end of his life after fighting for a long time, and Hollywood wouldn't let it, and he tried, and eventually he got some roles in Hong Kong movies that were such international successes that finally bled over, and he finally got a deal. And then of course we have Jackie Chan and Jet Li, but they weren't true American Asians. They couldn't speak English well. They were born in China, and so it wasn't the same. They have star power, but they were more comedic roles. And I think there's still a long way we can go as a movement, as a society, and I think as a race, as a culture, we've made some great strides with this movie, Crazy Rich Asians, and I think we can all learn something from it. I don't know if what your opinion is on this. It could be all across the board indifference. Maybe it's I want to be a star one day to change it, or I want to be a producer one day, or a script writer one day to make the calls, or just something in your own local community. Maybe you go and watch and support this movie a few times, like some people I know have, or it's showing people that they can kind of see things differently. But I think there's many signs out there that's we shouldn't have to be seen as a emasculated role, and as an individual and as a community we can kind of do stuff and learn from other people, other movements, other races, other people who have died, to really see how we can kind of move towards where we want to be. And with Bruce, he embodied that as a person in the social life as well as a person on screen. He was ferocious, philosophical. He was funny, but not extremely funny. He didn't make the whole film about funniness. And he was quiet at times, but he was loud and center of attention at times. And he would do what he did. This guy was such such an interesting guy, like someone that's unfortunately we don't see much of anymore. This guy, if you read his biography, he was willing to fight for what he believed in, and that was his natural nature. Rather than shy away, he would fight. So he dated a lot of white women when he went to America. One time he was at a cowboy honky tonk. He went to all these places that normal Asians wouldn't go to, and he got into a skirmish with the people there. He got into another fight at an all-black social gathering, and then in Hong Kong as well as in California, he was harassed by other men while he had a date. So in California, he had a white date, and like 2 or 3 white men were harassing him and calling him a chink, and he always fought them. That one time he didn't because his date told him not to, and he agreed. But even in Hong Kong, like, he was harassed as well. Like, he wore a purple dress shirt, and Asian people were harassing him and calling him a dandy while he had a date on his shoulder. So he held on for a little bit of time, and then like kicked both of their asses, and they ran away. So this guy really, he did what he wanted to, and he didn't hold back. And I think that's something that's incredible. I think we live in a better time now where, if you do see someone, like take, an Asian man with a white date, the chances you'll be harassed or disrespected explicitly are less. We live in a better era, and we're still moving in that direction. We still have a long way to go. But ultimately, we all want love, equality, to be treated equally. We don't like suffering, and we want, equal opportunities. And I think we're moving in that direction. And I think hopefully it's been obvious, but now people are really starting to internalize it, that Asian Americans have a lot to offer as a movement, and there's so much value. And to discredit that or represent them in a way that is minuscule is outdated. It's based off short-sighted perspectives of distant history, of our Anglo-Saxon settlers. So this video is getting long enough. I hope you get the point. I'm going to release a article soon summarizing what I learned from Bruce Lee's biography. Incredible guy. Obviously had his flaws, but I think we can all learn a lot from this. And Tim is doing it in his own way, with his African American upbringing and background. And for him to do this, even though he's already married now, and he's not doing it to for his own benefit, in the sense that he's trying to get better respect, or I guess he is in terms of career, but the fact that he's not doing it for personal gain in the dating world, he's just trying to help the movement, and he always has. I think it's great. He doesn't, you can tell he doesn't believe in this scarcity mindset where if I take from the pot, then you won't have as much. He's trying to help the whole movement. Really happy for the movie's success. I'll do what I can to really just improve the movement and improve my life as an individual. But I'm really excited. I think I've been hearing a lot this term of this pivot point, and how now is the time for it all to change. I can't say for sure if that's really the case. I know a lot of directors and actors like Ken Jeong and John M. Chu have been saying this. Is it truly the pivot point where it all changes? I don't know. I do think there's so much opportunity, in the sense that as individuals and as a people, we can really do so much more to change and alter the world, so it's better, so it's more fair. And it can be as simple as how you dress and how you portray yourself and choose to act while still being your authentic self. Bruce spent money on his outfits, his dress, his hair, he looked really good all the time. And that's not something typically seen of an Asian American because of their focus on school. But it can be done, and it's not going to, ruin your life. It's going to help your life. So that's one way. It could be as simple as, pursuing your passion. Bruce's was a masculine passion. It could be as simple as standing up for what you don't want to be represented as. If you have the opportunity to be represented, you have to, make that choice, just kind of like other people have. Morgan Freeman, when he was first starting out acting, he walked out on a few roles he could have taken to further his career because they represented African Americans in a bad way if he took those roles. But then, you have that other perspective of Ken Jeong or Jimmy Yang, who just, they just take anything they can get. So in that sense, it still furthers their career and gets them ahead. So there's like different behaviors about it. And I think, I don't know, I'll leave it up to you to decide which one's better or worse. But I think Bruce Lee has made quite an impact in the short 32 years of his life. He really squeezed the juice out of it. Yeah, so enough of me rambling. Hopefully you got some out of this. Take some action, and I'll see you later.